So this is the second part on the videos on finding the inverse function. And this, in my first example, I've find the inverse function of f of x equals 3x plus 4. Now I'm going to start in the same way that I always start these questions, and I'm going to start by writing y equals 3x plus 4, just to change it out of function notation. You'll see why I've done that in a minute, because it just makes the calculations a bit easier to do. So now what I've actually done is I've taken an input x, and I've done some things to it. So I've actually multiplied by 3 and added 4 in this case, and I've got an output y. Now to find the inverse function, I actually want to go backwards. I want to look at what the inverse operations are. So I'm going to need to take an input y and get an output x. So actually the main thing I need to do here is I need to make x the subject of the formula. So if I just get rid of this and make x the subject of the formula, if I take away 4 from both sides, it gives me y minus 4 equals 3x, and divide both sides by 3, then I get y minus 4 divided by 3 equals x. So now I've got here my inverse operations, and all I need to do is change this back into function notation. So if I change this back into function notation, I've got f to the minus 1x equals x minus 4 over 3. And you just need to be aware that now that I've got an input of x, I need to change the y to an x. So there's my inverse function. And if I look at the graph, then I've got my original function here, f of x equals 3x plus 4. And if I reflect that in the line y equals x, then I get my inverse function, x minus 4 all divided by 3. Let's look at a second example. So I've got find the inverse function of g of x, which equals 2x squared plus 4x minus 7. And again, I'm going to start by writing y equals 2x squared plus 4x minus 7. Now, the only way to rearrange this to make x a subject of the formula is actually by completing the square to start off with. So I'm going to complete the square on this. And if you're not sure how to complete the square, then you can look back at some of my previous videos. So now I've completed the square, it's much easier because I've just got an x by itself here. So it's going to make it easier to make x the subject of the formula. So if I do that, I can add 9 to both sides. I can divide both sides by 2. I'll just go up here now. If I now square root both sides of the equation, I get x plus 1 equals the square root of y plus 9 over 2. You just have to remember that that's plus or minus. Then if I take away 1 from both sides, I get minus 1 plus or minus the square root of y plus 9 all divided by 2. And now all I need to do is change that back into function notation. Of course I've got g of x here, so this should be g to the minus 1x equals minus 1 plus or minus the square root of x plus 9 over 2. So there's my inverse. Now if I go onto GeoGebra and look at what this looks like on the graph, then if I change this to 2x squared plus 4x minus 7, press enter, and there's my original function. And if I reflect that in the line y equals x, then I get the inverse. Okay, so here's the inverse here. And you might look at that and think, I remember back to the video on what is a function. And if you look at this inverse here, this isn't actually a function. Because if we take an input, let's say we took minus 5, then we have two outputs. We have an output here, and we have an output here. And the definition of a function does not allow that. So this inverse in this case is not a function, which is just an interesting point to note. But if I go back onto my main point of this video, to find an inverse function, really the main thing is to make x the subject of the formula. So I hope that helps with finding an inverse. Thanks a lot. Bye.